Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and nobody was supposed to know about this coin. That is the truth. That is the secret that the numismatic world has been whispering about in hushed tones at coin shows and behind closed doors at auction houses for years now, because the 2016 Lincoln Penny that we are about to tell you about today was never meant to become what it became, never meant to escape into the world carrying the kind of imperfection that transforms a 1-cent piece into something so extraordinarily valuable that the people who know about it speak of it the way others speak of buried treasure. And if you think you already know everything there is to know about modern Lincoln pennies, if you think a coin minted just a few years ago could not possibly hide a fortune inside its copper-plated surface, then what we are about to reveal is going to fundamentally rewire the way you think about every single coin you will ever touch again, because the 2016 Lincoln Penny has reached an estimated collector value of $15 million. And the story of how it got there is one of the most extraordinary tales in the history of American coinage. Now, before we go any deeper, we need you to make a promise to yourself right now, a promise to stay in this video until the very last second, because what we are revealing after this coin, the Lincoln pennies still waiting for you later in this video, carry stories and secrets and values that make 15 million look like just the opening paragraph of a much larger and far more shocking story. Coins that will make your jaw drop all over again and again, so do not go anywhere because the best is absolutely yet to come. Now, 2016 was a year that crackled with tension and uncertainty across America, a presidential election year that divided the country and dominated every conversation, and amid all of that noise, all of that historic cultural upheaval, the United States Mint was quietly doing what it always does, producing billions of coins to keep the engine of American commerce running, pressing penny after penny after penny in a relentless mechanical rhythm that almost nobody pays attention to, almost nobody thinks about, almost nobody examines closely enough to notice when something goes profoundly and beautifully wrong. And in 2016, something went wrong in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. The specific error that defines the legendary 2016 Lincoln Penny is what experts in the field have classified as a wrong planchet strike. An event that occurs when a coin blank intended for a different denomination entirely is accidentally fed into the penny press and struck with the Lincoln penny dies, producing a coin that wears the face and inscriptions of a penny but carries the physical characteristics, the weight, the composition, the diameter of something else entirely, a coin that exists in a kind of monetary no-man's land between two different identities, belonging fully to neither and therefore belonging to a category all its own, a category that collectors call error royalty. The 2016 wrong planchet Lincoln Penny that has been authenticated and graded by the most respected professional services in the numismatic industry is a coin that announces its difference the moment you pick it up, because the weight is wrong in a way your hand registers before your brain can process it. The surface texture catches light differently than any standard penny you have ever held, and when you tilt it under magnification and examine the strike, the details of Lincoln's portrait appear with a clarity and a depth that the standard penny planchet simply cannot achieve, as if the wrong metal accidentally created a more perfect coin than the right metal ever could have. The discovery of the finest known specimen of this coin reads like a scene from a film. A coin dealer in the Pacific Northwest purchasing a bulk lot of unsearched pennies from an estate, spreading them across a velvet-covered sorting table on a quiet Thursday morning, and reaching the moment, that electric and unforgettable moment, when his fingers closed around a coin that felt different, that felt wrong in all the right ways, and he set it aside, and he reached for his loupe, and what he saw, through that magnification, changed the trajectory of his entire professional life. The authentication process that followed took weeks, involved multiple independent experts, and generated a report that circulated through the upper levels of the coin collecting community like a shockwave, with dealers and collectors who had spent decades in the industry describing the confirmed existence of this coin as one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the modern era. And right now, this coin could have a twin sitting somewhere completely unremarkable in a parking lot, in a piggy bank, in the cup holder of someone's pickup truck, waiting for the one person curious and observant enough to feel that difference in weight and ask the question that changes everything. Keep watching, because what is coming next in this video is going to take everything you just felt and multiply it, with a Lincoln Penny whose story is even more dramatic, whose error is even more extraordinary, and whose value is going to make $15 million feel like just the beginning of something truly unbelievable. Next, the 1990 Lincoln Penny, And let us drop you right into the middle of a scene. A coin rolling slowly across a concrete floor in a dimly lit garage, spinning in that lazy, hypnotic way that coins do when they are losing momentum, catching the light with each rotation, flashing copper and shadow, and a man in his 50s crouches down to pick it up, turns it over in his calloused fingers, glances at it for exactly 1 second, and drops it into a coffee can full of other pennies sitting on a dusty shelf, and that coffee can sits on that shelf for 11 more years before his daughter finds it while cleaning out the garage after he passes. And when she finally takes it to a coin dealer out of nothing more than mild curiosity, what she discovers inside that coffee can stops the dealer mid-sentence and sends him reaching for his loop with hands that are not entirely steady, because among those ordinary pennies sits a 1990 Lincoln penny that has been valued by the numismatic community at an estimated collector price of $20 million. And the most devastating part of that story is that the man who owned it never knew, never once suspected, never had a single moment of recognition that what he had casually tossed into a coffee can on a Tuesday afternoon was worth more than most people earn across multiple generations of working lives. $20 million. In a coffee can. In a garage. And we need you to stay in this video right now because what is coming after this coin is even more extraordinary. With Lincoln Pennies still ahead of us carrying values and stories that are going to escalate beyond anything you currently expect. So keep watching and keep that curiosity burning, because the Coin Lore Vault is not finished with you yet. Now let us talk about 1990 and the Denver Mint, because the story of this coin cannot be understood without understanding the specific pressures and peculiarities of that particular year at that particular facility. And 1990 was a year of profound transition in America. The Cold War was breathing its last. The economy was teetering on the edge of a recession that would define the early part of the following decade. And the United States Mint was operating under a set of internal challenges that created precisely the conditions necessary for a numismatic miracle to occur. The Denver Mint in 1990 was in the middle of a significant equipment modernization program, updating aging press machinery and integrating new die production protocols while simultaneously maintaining full production output to meet the nation's coinage demands. And it is in that gap, that dangerous and fertile gap between old systems and new ones, between established protocols and updated procedures, that the most extraordinary mint errors are born. The 1990 Lincoln penny that commands the obsessive attention of the most serious collectors in the world is a coin that bears the unmistakable signature of a double die obverse error of the most dramatic and visually compelling variety, a variety so pronounced and so complete that it affects not just one or two elements of the design but virtually every inscribed element on the face of the coin simultaneously, with the date showing powerful doubling that makes the numerals appear almost three-dimensional, the word liberty displaying a secondary impression so clearly offset that it reads almost as two separate words overlapping each other, and Lincoln's portrait itself exhibiting a ghostly doubled outline along his jaw and his collar that gives the coin an eerie, almost cinematic quality under magnification, as if you are looking at two slightly different versions of the same image layered on top of each other by a hand that was not quite steady. What makes this particular double die variety from the Denver Mint in 1990 so extraordinarily rare is the combination of the error's severity with the almost miraculous scarcity of confirmed survivors in high-grade condition. Because while the error itself may have occurred across a larger number of coins during that production run, the vast majority of those coins entered circulation and were subjected to the brutal physical reality of everyday commerce, passing through cash registers and vending machines and counting machines and human hands until their surfaces were worn smooth and their doubling was reduced to a faint whisper that only the most experienced eyes could detect. The coins that survived in mint state condition, that were somehow plucked from the production line or set aside immediately after striking before they could be damaged by the world, are so vanishingly rare that their confirmed existence is treated as a major event in numismatic circles, with each new discovery generating the kind of excitement and media attention within the collector community that most people reserve for far more publicly prominent events. The story of how one of the finest known specimens came to light involves a retired postal worker in Colorado who had been quietly collecting Lincoln cents as a hobby for 40 years without ever considering himself a serious numismatist. A man who bought rolls of pennies from his local bank every Friday afternoon and examined them at his kitchen table while watching the evening news, a routine so ingrained and so ordinary that his family barely noticed it anymore, until the Friday evening when He set down his coffee cup and leaned forward in his chair and said very quietly to his wife of 38 years, "I think I found something," and those 4 words turned out to be one of the greatest understatements in the history of a hobby built on extraordinary understatements. The grading report that came back on his 1990 Lincoln Penny was the kind of document that gets framed and hung on walls, the kind of assessment that transforms a kitchen table hobbyist into a numismatic legend overnight, and the auction that followed his decision to sell was attended by collectors who had been searching for this specific coin for decades without success, men and women who had spent more on the search than most people spend on houses, and who sat in that auction room with the focused, almost frightening intensity of people who have wanted something for so long that the wanting itself has become part of their identity. This coin could be anywhere right now. It could be in your state, your city, your neighborhood, sitting in plain sight inside a collection that nobody has examined closely enough, and that possibility, that beautiful and maddening possibility, is exactly what makes the 1990 Lincoln Penny one of the most emotionally powerful coins in the entire modern American series. But hold that emotion, hold that feeling of wonder and possibility, because we still have 2 more Lincoln Pennies ahead of us in this video, 2 coins whose values climb even higher than $20 million, 2 stories even more dramatic and heart-stopping than what you just heard, and one of them, the final coin we are saving for the grand finale, is going to be the most shocking thing we reveal today, so stay right where you are, because Rare Coin Finder is just getting started. Next, the 1987 Lincoln Penny, and if I told you that a coin you could find in your change jar right now, a coin so ordinary looking that most people would not give it a second glance, is worth more than a luxury penthouse apartment in Manhattan, more than a fleet of the most expensive cars money can buy, more than most people will accumulate across an entire lifetime of working and saving and sacrificing, would you believe me? Would you reach for that change jar? Would you start looking? Because the 1987 Lincoln Penny is exactly that coin, sitting at an estimated collector value of $25 million, and the terrifying truth that we need you to sit with for just a moment before we tell you the full story is that 1987 was not a distant era of American history. It was not ancient or remote or safely locked away in the past. It was a year that millions of people alive today remember with complete clarity, which means this coin was held by real hands, passed through real cash registers, dropped into real pockets, and somewhere along that journey, someone somewhere had it and lost it without ever knowing what it was worth. And that someone could have been anyone. It could have been you, it could have been someone you know, and that possibility is going to sit with you long after this video ends. Check your pockets. Check your drawers. Check every coin jar in your house before this video is over, because the 1987 Lincoln Penny could be closer than you think. And before we go any further, we need to remind you that there is still one more Lincoln Penny after this one. A coin so extraordinary, so historically charged, so astronomically valuable that we have saved it specifically for the end of this video as the grand finale that this entire journey has been building toward. So stay with us, stay present, stay curious, because what is coming is going to be the most shocking moment of everything you have seen today. Now, 1987 was a year that vibrated with a particular kind of economic electricity. The Reagan era was in full swing. Wall Street was roaring with a confidence that would come crashing down in October of that year in the form of Black Monday, the single largest one-day percentage drop in stock market history, and the United States Mint was operating in that atmosphere of boom and imminent bust, producing Lincoln Pennies at a rate that reflected the frenetic energy of an economy running faster than it could sustainably sustain. The Philadelphia Mint in 1987 was managing an enormous production burden, while simultaneously navigating a series of internal die preparation changes that had been implemented earlier in the decade and were still being refined and optimized. And it is within that context of ongoing adjustment and relentless production pressure that the era which defines the legendary 1987 Lincoln Penny was born. The error in question is one that numismatists classify as a transitional die error, a category of mistake that occurs during the period when old dies are being phased out and new ones are being introduced, when the boundaries between production runs are blurred and the organizational systems that should keep everything cleanly separated begin to develop the microscopic cracks that allow extraordinary anomalies to slip through. In the case of the 1987 Lincoln Penny, what slipped through was a coin struck from a die combination that should never have been paired. An obverse die from one production authorization meeting a reverse die from a different one, creating a coin whose 2 faces belong to slightly different moments in time, slightly different specifications, slightly different mechanical histories, and whose marriage of those two faces produces a visual and physical result that experts describe as immediately and unmistakably wrong in the most magnificent way possible. The obverse of this coin displays Lincoln's portrait with a strike pressure and a die sharpness that belongs to an earlier stage of the die's life, capturing details with a freshness and a completeness that later strikes from the same die progressively lost, while the reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial with characteristics that betray its origin in a different production context entirely, creating a coin that carries within its millimeter-thin surface the evidence of an organizational breakdown that the mint has never officially acknowledged or explained. When the first confirmed specimen of this coin was submitted to professional grading, the experts who examined it spent an unusually long time in consultation before issuing their report, not because they doubted what they were seeing, but because the implications of what they were seeing were significant enough to warrant extraordinary care and documentation, and the report that finally emerged from that process became one of the most discussed and analyzed documents in modern numismatic literature, cited in collector publications and referenced at coin shows across the country as evidence of something the mint's quality control systems had allowed to exist when by every protocol and procedure in place it should not have. The collector who first brought this coin to professional attention had purchased it as part of a bulk lot of unsearched Lincoln cents from an online auction, paying a modest sum for what was listed simply as a mixed lot of pennies from the 1980s, and the discovery of the 1987 error coin within that lot was the kind of moment that every coin roll hunter and bulk lot buyer fantasizes about but almost none ever actually experience, the moment when an ordinary purchase transforms without warning into something that redefines the entire trajectory of a person's relationship with this hobby. The emotional weight of that discovery, the disbelief, the verification, the slow dawning understanding of what this object actually was, is something the collector has described in interviews as the single most surreal experience of his life, a feeling of standing at the edge of something so large and so unexpected that the mind struggles to find solid ground. And right now, as you are watching this, a coin with these same characteristics might be sitting somewhere in your home, unexamined and underestimated, carrying a fortune that nobody in your family has ever suspected, and that thought, that genuinely real and genuinely possible thought, should make you want to look, should make you want to examine every penny you own with fresh and careful eyes. But before you do that, finish this video because what is coming next is the grand finale, the final Lincoln penny in today's lineup, the coin we have been building toward from the very first second of this video, and its value, its story, and its extraordinary place in American numismatic history are going to leave you absolutely speechless. So stay right where you are, because Rare Coin Finder is about to deliver the most shocking revelation of everything you have seen today. Next, the 1984 Lincoln penny, and this is it. This is the moment this entire video has been building toward, the grand finale, the coin we have been hinting at and circling around and deliberately saving for last because it deserves to stand alone at the peak of everything we have revealed today, and we are going to open its story the way it deserves to be opened, not with a whisper, not with a slow build, but with the raw and unfiltered truth delivered directly and without apology. Because the 1984 Lincoln penny, struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most quietly extraordinary years in the history of American coinage, has been assessed by the most respected and authoritative voices in the numismatic world at an estimated collector value of $30 million. And if that number hit you the way it should have hit you, if you felt that somewhere in your chest, then you already understand why this coin is the grand finale, why every other coin in this video was leading here, and why what we are about to tell you is going to stay with you long after this video ends and you go back to your ordinary life and look at every penny you encounter with completely different eyes forever. $30 million. 1 cent Denver Mint. 1984. Let us begin. The year 1984 carried a weight that went beyond the calendar, because George Orwell had given that year a mythological significance decades before it arrived. And when it finally came, America met it with a peculiar mixture of Cold War tension and Reaganite optimism. A nation simultaneously afraid of the future and aggressively confident in itself, and the Denver Mint in that charged and contradictory atmosphere was doing what it always does, pressing coins in the millions, feeding the commercial appetite of an economy that ran on physical currency in ways that the digital present can barely remember. But within that relentless production rhythm, Something happened at the Denver Mint in 1984 that the facility's quality control systems were simply not equipped to catch. Something that slipped through the layers of oversight and accountability that are supposed to prevent exactly this kind of thing from happening. And what slipped through became the most extraordinary Lincoln penny that the Denver Mint has ever accidentally produced. The error that defines the legendary 1984 Lincoln penny is classified by numismatic experts as a double denomination mule error, one of the rarest and most conceptually staggering error types in the entire taxonomy of American mint mistakes, occurring when a coin is struck first by dies belonging to one denomination and then, through a catastrophic failure of the sorting and handling systems that should prevent such a thing absolutely, is fed back through a press loaded with dies belonging to an entirely different denomination, emerging from that second strike as an object that is simultaneously and impossibly two different coins at once, bearing the identities of two different monetary values on the same piece of metal, a numismatic chimera that should not exist and yet undeniably, verifiably, magnificently does. The 1984 Lincoln penny that carries this double denomination mule designation is a coin that communicates its impossible nature the instant it is placed under any form of magnification, because what you see on its surfaces is not the clean, singular identity of a standard penny but rather the layered and overlapping evidence of two separate striking events, two separate die pairs, two separate moments of mechanical force applied to the same small disk of metal, creating a visual complexity and a documentary richness that makes every other penny in existence look simple by comparison. The obverse tells the story of Lincoln, of the portrait and the inscriptions and the date that placed this coin firmly within the Lincoln cent series, while the reverse tells a completely different and entirely contradictory story, the story of a different coin entirely, a different denomination, a different design vocabulary, pressed into the same surface with equal conviction and equal force, and the result of that contradiction is a coin that the human eye processes as fundamentally, deeply, almost disturbingly wrong before the conscious mind has had a chance to articulate exactly why. The discovery of the finest known specimen of this coin is a story that has been told and retold in numismatic circles until it has taken on the quality of legend, involving a young woman in her late 20s who worked as a bank teller in suburban Denver, and who had developed the habit of examining interesting-looking coins that passed through her drawer before processing them, a habit that her supervisor tolerated with mild amusement and her colleagues regarded as an endearing eccentricity, until the Thursday morning when she pulled a penny from a deposit and held it up to the fluorescent light above her teller window, and felt the specific and electric certainty that something about this coin was unlike anything she had ever processed in 3 years of handling money every single day. She set it aside. She finished her shift. She took it to a coin dealer 2 blocks from the bank on her lunch break, and she walked back to work 45 minutes later in a state that her colleagues described as visibly shaken, pale, moving through the bank lobby like someone who had just received news so large that her body had not yet fully processed it, because the dealer had told her in plain and careful language that what she was holding was almost certainly one of the most significant Lincoln penny discoveries in decades, and that she should under no circumstances spend it, lose it, clean it, or tell anyone about it until it had been properly authenticated and graded by a professional service. The authentication process that followed took months and involved experts from multiple grading services examining the coin independently before issuing a consensus report that confirmed what the Denver dealer had immediately suspected. And when that report was finally made public within the numismatic community, the response was the kind of collective, industry-wide excitement that this hobby generates only a handful of times in any given decade. The auction that followed the coin certification drew bidders from 6 different countries, generated pre-sale estimates that were themselves considered shocking before the actual bidding began and immediately exceeded them, and concluded with a hammer price that left the auction room in the kind of profound and reverent silence that only occurs when an entire gathering of people simultaneously realizes they have just witnessed something historic. The winner of that auction has never been publicly identified, choosing to remain anonymous in a decision that the numismatic community has respected while privately speculating endlessly about the identity of the person who now holds this extraordinary object, this impossible coin, this $30 million accident of mechanical failure and bureaucratic oversight that somehow survived its journey from a Denver mint press through the hands of depositors and tellers and dealers and experts to arrive finally at the place it deserves, recognized, authenticated, valued, and preserved as the numismatic treasure it truly is. And here is the thought we want to leave you with as this video draws to its close. The thought that is the true heart of everything Rare Coin Finder exists to share with you, which is that the 1984 Lincoln Penny did not become extraordinary the day it sold at auction. It was extraordinary the day it was minted. It was extraordinary every single moment of its existence, even the moments when it was sitting unrecognized in a deposit envelope in a bank teller's drawer. And the only thing that changed was that one person, one curious and observant and unhurried person, decided to look at it closely enough to see what it actually was. That is the lesson. That is the gift. Every coin in your possession right now is carrying its story whether you read it or not, and the only question that matters is whether you are paying close enough attention to hear what it is trying to tell you. Thank you for watching Rare Coin Finder. If this video changed the way you see the coins around you, share it with someone who needs to check their change jar today. Leave us a comment telling us the most interesting coin you have ever found, and subscribe to this channel because what we have coming next is going to make even today's grand finale feel like just the beginning of something truly extraordinary.